Ciao ragazzi! In today's video we are going to review the adjectives. I hope you recall what adjectives are, right? They are the words we use to describe nouns. Some examples in English: tall, cold, happy, heavy, strange. If you think about it, almost always when you use words like tall, cold, happy, heavy, or strange, you are using them to describe something, and that something you name with a noun. For example, the tall building, right? The word tall is describing the building, right? So the adjective describes the noun. The cold day, same thing. Cold is describing the day. The happy child, the heavy box, the strange night, right? So, to begin our review, let's repeat an exercise that we did before. Let's find some adjectives in English sentences. The woman drives the yellow car. I'm going to go through this quickly because it is review, of course, right? The woman drives the yellow car. Which word here in this sentence is an adjective? Which of these words describes? Well, yellow describes, right? There is our adjective. It describes the noun car. The man sleeps in the big bed. Which one of these is an adjective? Big, of course, because it describes the bed, right? It gives us some specific information about what the bed is like. The old clock rings in the morning. Clearly, what is being described here is the clock, and the word that does the describing is old. There is our adjective. And lastly, the coffee is good. Our adjective here is good because it's describing the noun coffee, right? So adjectives describe nouns. That is what they do. About adjectives in Italian specifically, we need to remember several rules. The first is where we place them in sentences. In English, we place them before nouns, right? First adjective, then noun. The boring professor, adjective, noun. The intelligent student, adjective, noun. The long books, adjective, noun. In Italian, the order is the other way around. First the noun, then the adjective. Il professore noioso, that means the boring professor, but the word that means noioso, the word that means boring is noioso, and it's coming after professore, right? First noun, then adjective. La studentessa intelligente, same case. First noun, studentessa, then adjective, intelligente. I libri lunghi, libri is our noun, lunghi is our adjective, okay? So the position of the adjective in Italian is after the noun, not before it. Second important rule, nouns have gender in Italian, right? All nouns, not just the nouns that refer to living beings that actually have gender in real life. No, all nouns have gender, right? Tavolo is masculine, penna is feminine, finestra is feminine, orologio is masculine, etc., etc., right? So when we're describing a masculine thing with an adjective, we need to use a masculine form of the adjective. When we're describing a feminine thing, we need to use a feminine form of the adjective. This rule is known as correspondence in gender, right? Basically, adjective and noun need to have the same gender. One example, il professore noioso, again, that means the boring professor. Notice that noioso is ending in O, right? It's a masculine form of the adjective. Whereas if I change professore for professoressa, I also have to change the ending of the adjective. I have to say noiosa, right? Use a feminine form of the adjective. So how do you change the gender of adjectives in Italian? There's a couple of cases, okay? First, we have adjectives that can end in either O or A. O for masculine, A for feminine. Noioso, which we have been using a lot in this lesson, and again means boring, perhaps because the lesson is boring, but what can I do? Noioso is one of those adjectives that has a masculine form in O and a feminine form in A, right? Again, il libro noioso, libro is masculine, so noioso. La professoressa noiosa, professoressa is feminine, so noiosa, right? That's one set of adjectives, if you will. And the other set is the one that ends in E, right? For adjectives that end in E, there's no change when the gender changes. Notice these two examples. Lo studente intelligente. Studente means male student, right? And la studentessa, also intelligente. Studentessa means female student, right? So I changed the gender from masculine to feminine, but the adjective intelligente stayed the same. Okay, so two main types of adjectives, the one that have a masculine form in O and a feminine form in A, and the ones that only have one form ending in E. Okay, so let's look at a few adjectives and think how we would change them to the feminine, right? I'm going to give you masculine forms and we change them to the feminine. Antipatico, how would you change it to the feminine? Well, it's ending in O, which means that the feminine form is antipatica with an A at the end. Grande. How do you change that? You don't change it because it's ending in E. You see? It's quite easy. Paziente. You don't change it. It ends in E. Interessante. Same thing. You don't change it. Brutto. I hope you remember that this means ugly and not stupid in Italian, right? Brutto, we change to brutta. Stupido, we change to stupida. Cattivo, we change to cattiva. How about diligente? We do not change it. It ends in A. Giovane, which means young, we do not change. Timido, it does change to timida. Right? Divertente, which means fun, it does not change. Piccolo changes to piccola. Saggio, which means wise, changes to saggia. Bello, which means, of course, beautiful, changes to bella. Intelligente does not change. Buono changes to buona. Pigro, which means lazy, changes to pigra. Testardo, which means stubborn, changes to testarda. Estroverso, which is extroverted, changes to estroversa. And finally, impaziente, which means impatient, does not change. Okay? So adjectives need to have the same gender as the noun they describe, right? If the adjective ends in O in the masculine, in the feminine it must end in A. And if the adjective ends in E in the masculine, in the feminine it stays the same. Okay, quite simple. But there's also another rule which says that if the noun is plural, the adjective must also be plural. I hope you guys remember that plural means more than one. Okay, so if we're describing a noun that refers to several things, like for example, libri instead of libro, or scaffali instead of scaffale, if we're using a plural noun, we must also use plural adjective. So what is the rule here? It's quite simple. We basically follow the rules that we learned for the plurals, right? For adjectives that are ending in O, change the ending to I, right? For example, I libri noiosi, right? The singular was libro noioso, right? So the plural is noiosi. O goes to I. Same thing for gli studenti allegri, right? Allegro is the singular, so allegri is the plural. I libri noiosi, of course, means the boring books. Gli studenti allegri means the happy students. Now, for adjectives that are ending in A in the singular, we just change them to E, following the rule A goes to E. For example, le scuole noiose. The singular would be scuola noiosa. Since the singular is ending in A, the plural changes to E. Same thing for le studentesse simpatiche. The singular is simpatica, ends in A, so we change that to the E in the plural, simpatiche. And then lastly, for adjectives that end in E, we change it to I, following the rule of E goes to I. So intelligente becomes intelligenti in all cases, right? Gli studenti intelligenti or le studentesse intelligenti. E goes to I. So we just follow the rules for the plurals, right? Bearing that in mind, let's finish this review with an exercise in which we change adjectives to the plural, okay? I'll give you singular forms and you think about the plural forms. Antipatica, that means mean, right? And it's a feminine form because it's ending in A. So the plural, right? Mean women, basically, it would have to be antipatiche, ending in E. For grande, it becomes grandi. Grande, of course, means big. For paziente, it becomes pazienti with an I at the end. E goes to I, right? For interessante, interessanti. E goes to I. For brutta, brutte with an E at the end. A goes to E. For stupido, stupidi. For cattivo, cattivi. For diligente, diligenti, right? O goes to I, E goes to I. Giovane, giovani, E goes to I. Timida, timide, A goes to E. Divertente, divertenti, with an I at the end because E goes to I. And so on and so forth, right? We know those rules by heart, or I hope you do, right? If you don't, review them. Piccolo, which means little, becomes piccoli in the plural. Saggia, which is the feminine form of wise, would become sagge with an E at the end. Bella, beautiful, feminine form, right? Becomes belle, right? With an E at the end. Intelligente becomes intelligenti with an I at the end. E goes to I. Buono becomes buoni, I at the end. Pigro becomes pigri, I at the end. Testardo becomes testardi, I at the end. All of these three, O goes to I. Estroversa becomes estroverse, A goes to E. And lastly, impaziente becomes impazienti, E goes to I. This has been our review of adjectives and the rules in Italian. Ciao ciao.